Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
Another episode of another episode of Trash Talk. I'm Damian Hill. With me, as always, is TG O'Connor. Tonight, we are joined by the striking Viking, Kaitlin Young, who's coming off a fresh win at Inventa. Damn it, I always blank on the numbers.
41.
I'm not good with that shit.
That's
40.
okay.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry.
It's okay.
How are you feeling coming off that win?
Good. It was pretty cool to actually get a fight during all of this. I didn't know, like just kind of up in the air like everybody else. Like, when are we going to get to fight? What's happening? Yeah. So, and then like there's always the stress of, okay, I got to not get COVID and she needs to not get COVID, before before it happened. So I was really glad that it happened in the first place, and then because there was another fight on the card that got pulled because somebody tested positive. She's in fight shape, couldn't tell, obviously. She's asymptomatic, but yeah. So happy to have been able to fight. Happy to have had a good fight. It was like a fun one. She wanted to just stay in the pocket, so if I have my choice, that's how I like to fight. So it was a good time.
Yeah, you said that you didn't. I mean, you weren't really expecting it, but was it something that you were looking for or even planning on doing? And then, or when it came up, you just said, well, might as well.
You mean the fight itself?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I was hoping to fight. I just didn't think it would probably happen. So, and I think she actually asked to fight me, which is cool. So I was like, yeah, I'm down.
Oh, yeah, and then you mentioned she had she was eager to stay in the pocket with you, and I mean, if you're not living under a rock, like you said, that's where you like to fight as well, and I feel like the fight really played out that way. Was there anything that she did, other than stay in the pocket for the most part, that surprised you in the fight, or anything you weren't expecting?
A little, like I knew she had made some improvements in her game. So like the last time she fought was like 4 years ago. And she was piecing Charmaine Tweed up and then got caught with like a spinning back fist and put out. So, but she had still made some improvements in her game. Like she was, I would say like she was a more conscious boxer, just like more deliberate in some of her movements and stuff this fight, where some other fights she had just gone forward. So there's some stuff I thought I'd be able to do that she was, the way she was moving was different, more difficult for that. But then there was some stuff I didn't think I would be able to low kick her because I thought she was going to sit down and punch me in the face if I did it. It's like, can be more dangerous to do with somebody who's got a heavy right hand. But the way she was stepping to open up her hip beforehand gave me the low kick before she could settle. I wasn't anticipating that, but it was there. So, and Nick Thompson was in my corner. He's like, just keep staying on the leg until you start eating something for it. So we were able to do that, and I think that slowed her down enough so then I could put her in the clinch in the third round.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to touch on that. You were able to finally clinch her. You actually ended up getting her to switch stances after you ate up her lead leg quite a bit.
Yeah.
Is that something that you plan on doing like before you get the clinch, or is it just something that you noticed was there eventually and you got it in the third round? But when you eat up that lead leg, is that getting them to switch stances? Is that part of the game plan?
Not necessarily, but it is a tell. It's like, okay, it's getting to the point that it's bothering them so much that they would rather take away their own weapons than continue to eat that kick. Yeah. So, and like you'll notice too, a lot of the time, like we get used to, all of us strikers get used to hiding behind our lead shoulder. And a lot of the time when people switch, when they haven't been practicing that switch, they'll still try to sit behind that lead shoulder, their usual lead shoulder, which becomes their rear shoulder, and the head kick's easier to land. So, but some people just don't go down from it, which, you guys probably saw in the fight.
Oh,
but yeah.
She was as tough as they came. She took those shots, those elbows late in the third round there. I mean, So that was enough to get there. And I mean, it was a real clinic. I felt like you put on as far, like Damian said, worked the legs, went to the body, went to the clinch, worked the. I mean, it was 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. I mean, and just all in all, did you take any damage coming out of the fight? And did you tell him, Victor, hey, you're looking to get back in there?
Yeah, I told him I want to fight right away if I can, But of course, it's always difficult. It's always difficult seeing how divisions play out anyway, but especially in a pandemic where some states are completely shut down and people can't train. So you might have none of the internationals can really come in for the most part. So things are sort of in flux. I didn't get too injured during the fight, but I was a little banged up before. So we're kind of taking it a little easier, but I'm ready to hit it hard if I need to.
Are you telling you as a professional fighter didn't walk into this fight at 100%? No.
Well, here's the thing. I think that's the case most of the time. We wouldn't have events if people wouldn't fight. When everything's perfect. Oh, it's got to be perfect. No, that's not how it is. You never fight.
Exactly. Unfortunately, fighting isn't one of those luxury sports where you can go in almost 100% beforehand. Most people are cutting weight all the way up until the day of weigh-ins, which is before. So to say that anybody goes in 100% even while cutting weight, it's not the same. Like a professional football player saying, "Oh, I have to be all linemen have to be only 300 pounds before the big game."
Right.
It doesn't happen. It's not the same. But this is one of the first fights is the first fight that you had after opening up the Striking Institute for yourself. And
yeah,
I guess how was this experience, especially with the COVID playing into it? How was this experience? I guess, do you feel it's going to benefit you as a coach? And was it, what were the steps in taking this fight?
Well, that was interesting too. Like, I'm really fortunate that, Ryan Murray and I have opened it together. So he took over the lion's share of teaching because, it's really hard to give when you're so tired from doing 2 days, so that was really helpful. And that was really neat. I think also just kind of, there aren't even many sports on TV. So it's sort of a good morale boost to be able to have people fighting right now. I know you guys are doing some fights and you probably see that at your gym too. It's just, and then it's kind of like a fun learning experience for any fight is a fun learning experience for the whole team. So, it was really cool to be able to do it. Having the keys to your own place also makes it easier to run a camp in a pandemic, I was also really fortunate to get some really good work in down at, M Theory for grappling as well. Okay. So, yeah, because obviously we're striking.
I don't know if it just froze for a second, but I'm sorry. I don't know if it just froze for a second, okay. But I just remembered that we never went over the sponsors of the show, and before we get into the topic of what we're here to talk about, I guess who does a fighter's loyalty lay to? Because that's one of the fan questions that me and TJ were asking. That kind of we were talking about a little bit off camera, and I definitely want to get your opinion on it. But before we do, Trash Talk is brought to you again by Valhalla Combat Sports Incorporated, Ink Shrinks Tattoo out in New Brighton, Minnesota, Origin Wellness CBD out in Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Striking Institute, Spartan Martial Arts, James Clark's Sports Psychology and Hypnosis Therapy, The Fighters, and TJ's mom.
TJ's mom. I can almost recite this with you now.
It's getting there with the jingle for like the Shane Company. Like people know the sponsors of the show.
Yeah, they sure do. You guys do a good job with that. That was a great episode, by the way, when you guys were discussing the loyalty thing. And man, like it's so messy. It can be so messy because there's an element of it that is traditional martial arts, and you've got this person or people pouring all this time into you, maybe. But then there's also the business aspect of it. Are they taking money from you to do that? And if so, is it a business transaction or a loyalty issue? And then you've also got the issue of if you're trying to be professional, you need a professional level commitment from your coach. And by that, what I mean is like, if you're trying to do 2-a-days, it's going to be just really difficult if your coach can't be there for those things or has issue communicating with someone else. So I think there are so many things at play. I do think if somebody is really putting time into you and being like truly invested in your development, even when that means like maybe they have to bring someone else in that can take you to a place they can't, say it's strength conditioning or grappling or whatever. I sometimes see fighters not realize what they're getting and burn people that have helped them a lot. I think a lot of coaches get burnt out because of that. But then, there are a lot of coaches who are not making the fighters a priority and then get upset when they leave. And that's, not different, in my opinion.
Oh, okay. So really discuss, because I mean, I have my coaching experience, but I don't necessarily consider myself a coach. I've never taken a fighter under my wing and tried to make them the type of fighter that I am, type of thing,
Yeah.
But when you do, like, because we've all known those coaches, and I've worked with a few of the coaches as well, where they come to the gym there as a job. They start working with us, they start developing our skills, and then eventually they start to see like, hey man, I'm not being able to get enough work with you at the gym, but there's some things that I want to work with you on. Can I meet up with you outside the gym? So, well, yeah, but I can't really pay you for that. I don't care. I want you to be the shit. And those coaches, like, and some coaches do get burnt out of that, but like those coaches that have that feeling, like, I honestly, I feel like those type of coaches deserve a certain level of respect or a certain level of loyalty, regardless of how you separate the two or whatever is on the person itself. But like, how do you feel about those coaches?
I completely agree with you. And like, so when I started training with Corn Pet, I had met him when I was in LA. I started training he was at a Thai boxing gym. Gym got closed down, and he said, hey, I know some of you guys got fights. I will train you at the beach if you can show up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
So I was the only one who ever showed up, which was fucking awesome because I got private lessons at the beach. But we ended up working together, and like, I was really lucky to be able to bring him to Minnesota or fly there. And that was when I was fighting only Thai boxing for a while. And then when I went back to MMA, so he's not a grappler. He's got, well over 100 Thai fights. But what he did is he went around and did private lessons for himself with grappling coaches to see what kind of coach they were before bringing them in to work with me. He was awesome.
Okay, so that's an element that I've never or not never heard of. Guys usually have before they hire on other coaches will want to see how they work with and how they teach and everything. But he went and took their own personal classes before even bringing them over as like a trial. That's dedication.
It's really cool. Yeah. So and then like when I've trained with him, man, he is there every morning, making me do the hard shit that you don't want to do when you're tired, and like he's super dedicated. So like, I will always want him around and involved in my camps and even involved in my school if I can.
And was he one of the coaches that you worked with the longest, or is it just one of those relationships that you guys just developed so quickly?
Yeah, I think that. I think so we've only been working together since 2015, I think. So the last 5 years or so. But yeah, I think I felt very much understood, and I think that's an important thing. Like somebody who can kind of speak your language and knows how to drive you, right? Like if you try to drive a sports car in the Jeep the same way, you're not going to get the best out of either. So you got to find somebody who knows how to drive this sort of vehicle you are and pull the best out of you.
Yeah, and I love that analogy where you mentioned the race car, because I mean, you, as much as the driver is important, you have to have faith in the car you're working with. So when you
Mm-hmm.
compare that to the fighting, and knowing that you have a coach who truly wants you to get better, to where, like you said, he puts himself in a quote unquote uncomfortable situation. He's not a grappler, but he's willing to go do these things for you because he understands
Totally.
that bringing in the wrong person can ruin the whole thing. We talked about in the last episode about this. We used the recipe analogy. I mean, and you bring in one bad apple, you're going to ruin your whole pie. So
Totally.
him going out of the way of doing that just goes to show. And I mean, not even being in that scenario, I could see how you're willing to give your trust to him when he's showing you that he's willing to do it for you as well. That's great.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I feel super fortunate. And you know, like, no coach can know everything. No coach is perfect. But if they're willing to give you that that level of dedication, like, it really helps you take your game further. It certainly helped me take mine further than it was at the time. Holy cow.
Yeah.
So you know, and I think coaches also, like, we talk about fighters performing. I think coaches, there's also a degree of, like, they perform better if the student really believes in them too. Like, I think it pulls the best out of them. So that relationship is so important, and sometimes it's not tied to a specific gym. Like I said, we could be training outside in the grass. It doesn't matter.
Well, one of the things that we talked about when me and TJ when the subject was first brought up was, I guess, let's say I've been working with TJ for 10 years, and throughout that 10 years, I've gotten him to perfect his triangle from guard. But
Sure.
But he's never done it in a live fight. But it's something that I've worked on him for years and helped him perfect. Now, all of a sudden, he's starting to cross-train and work with another gym or another team, and all of a sudden, he pulls off the triangle in his next fight at all the same time that we've been cross-training, or that he's been cross-training with this other team. He pulls off the triangle that I showed him, and then everyone starts praising the fact that, oh, the cross-training must have been beneficial. He's been working with the new team, all this other stuff. TJ starts to believe it, but it's really the triangle that I showed him. Like,
Right.
he just happened to get it this fight, but he starts to believe the hype of the other team. Now, this is just that last video. I definitely feel like the coach has a right to feel a little bit disrespected if he doesn't get the shout out from that new fighter, or he starts to praise the coaches while he's cross training for getting that triangle finish. But at the same time, you don't want to offend the new coaches you're working with by saying, oh, no, that's something my old coach showed me, blah, blah, you know, and just going off how you feel about how you didn't really need them. Like, I mean, so I would say that the original coach that showed the move has the right to feel offended, but I don't know necessarily how to even go about that. And, like, how do you tell a fighter to, hey, don't give them those praise? Like, where's the middle ground? I don't know.
I'm with you. And it is messy sometimes. And say maybe that one fighter, that first coach maybe taught them, like, all the technical things, but that second coach maybe helped them perform mentally so they could do it. And it's like, it's like two pieces to the complete puzzle. So, you know, I think that can be a really important thing to remember, is, like, the coaches who have, because not one of us is, like, probably only learned from one person along the line. You probably learn from many. And you take little bits, and then you've got your own toolbox. But, like, you know, I do think it's important to remember that there are a lot of people that help you with different things. And sometimes they teach you what you don't want to do, what you want to make sure isn't in your camp.
How would you even, I don't know. I know how I try to do a lot of, like, self-reflecting and also about people around me too. Just like how I'm able to tell, like, okay, let me just use the example. My boxing coach, Thomas Jones, I started off as a wrestler in high school. Even my amateur career, I did mostly like ground and pound and stuff. But somewhere along the lines, met Thomas Jones, started working with him, and excuse me, convinced myself that I was a striker of sorts, and started having a lot of success with it. But I still had the base of a wrestler. Working with Thomas Jones, he is a hardcore boxer. Don't give a fuck about MMA. Kicking don't work in his eyes.
Sure.
All of that stuff. So I'm like, as I'm learning from this dude, I'm like, dude, you don't know shit. You don't like, I can't learn from you. You know, I started to just block out the fact everything else that he was saying that wasn't punching, and I started trying to adapt the punching with how I already fight, like his
Yeah.
boxing style, with how to mix in takedowns. Then I started learning how to mix in kicks and stuff. It's all like I just blocked out. I'm like, I'm only learning boxing from this dude. I'm only gonna learn
Yeah.
boxing, and then kind of mixed it in with myself. And then I had James Clark, who's obviously a wrestler, and a few other coaches that try to like blend in some of the things that he was teaching and showing. And it kind of goes into the, what you were saying earlier about your coach, where he was taking classes with those other grappling coaches and learning what type of coach they were. Well, my other grappling coaches and other striking coaches were training with Thomas and watching classes also, and then developing like, hey, I like this punch. You know, there's a takedown after that, and
Sure.
developing other things, you know. And but crap, I already went on a long spiel. I kind of forgot where I was going already. But but when it comes down to deciphering for yourself what you do need, working with the coach, and then I guess executing a game plan, like knowing what a coach brings for you exactly and specifically, and not letting what everybody else says, the cloud or
Totally.
like saying, oh, he's working with a new team, that's why he got that triangle, or that's why he landed that overhand. How do you keep your mind in check, or what advice would you give to other guys to keep their mind in check on what a coach actually does beneficial for you? Because we have seen I guess I don't want to talk too much shit, but Ronda Rousey's coach, where they get guys
Sure.
filled up with too much confidence that they shouldn't necessarily have. That's the question.
So that can be such an important thing, like not because there's so many people talking about fighting that don't know shit about fighting.
Yeah.
And man, they will talk like they know. And I think you really, whether it's a coach or whoever else wants to comment, if they take it as an insult when you ask about their experience or get upset about it, that should be a red flag. And some people do. You ask them, where did those ideas come from? How many fights do you have? How many fighters have you cornered? At what level? If that's insulting, that's a good sign that you really need to question what you're asking. That's not to say anybody should be discouraged from trying to help, but there's a lot of people speaking with certainty on things. And you'll notice, like, they're different kinds of fighters. They're different styles anyway, and then like different fighters think differently. So anybody who's a little too hard in the absolutes, like you mentioned, like you only do it this way and blah 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 blah. It's usually means they're not seeing the grander picture, right? But I think to your point, it is really important for fighters to understand like what they need. For instance, I sometimes like different things in the training room than I like in the corner even. And maybe that's the problem, is sometimes we have this idea that a coach has to be all these things, like one person has to be all these different things that you need. They have to teach you. They have to be your strength conditioning and your boxing and your grappling, whatever. And sometimes it's a bit of a mosaic, you know. That's okay. I think it works better if you have coaches that can talk to each other and it's not weird. But sometimes there are a lot of egos that get in the way there. Like they don't want to collaborate, or they don't want you going somewhere, you know.
Yeah,
And that can get hard.
The ego thing of it is one of the things that I feel like a lot of it contributes from is I guess what a fighter does and who a fighter is fought for and all those things is something a fighter could brag about, but also something here. I've gotten guys to this place and things like that. I'm not necessarily sure if this is in all of the all the gyms that have groups of coaches, if they all necessarily get jealous of each other, but I definitely feel like it's one of the factors when guys start to cross train and mix over with other gyms is that like, hey, I got my fighter to the UFC, and then they say, oh really? And then they find out that that person trains at another gym, not the or they cross train or do whatever. It's like, hold on, well, got them there, why are they training there too? And then it becomes the ego thing. And I don't know exactly how many people that has happened to, but I know for a fact, like if that has happened to me, I'd be a little bit disappointed. Like, no, dude, I got him there. And he's like, oh, I got to defend myself now that, hey, I got this person to the LFA or to the UFC or something. But they're not training at my gym now. And now I'm in defense mode and I got to defend that to a casual fucking fan. Like how you train at 2 gyms. Like that's the worst. And we've all seen fighters have to defend themselves to the casual fans. Like, oh, I'm a pro fighter. Oh, do you fight in the UFC? No. It's like, then how are you pro? Well, there's a difference. Like, you can be pro and not fight. Then you have to have that argument, and then coaches have arguing, and it just becomes this petty game of, oh no, dude, I know this shit. And you're defending yourself to some guy at some point. Now, I honestly, I feel like that is a major factor in all of it. I don't know. How do you feel about that aspect? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think that happens. I think there are also a lot of coaches who claim credit for stuff other people are doing too. Great example. So I think that happens. If you watch, you see it, right? Like you watch closely on people's social media or whatever, or you see who they're training with, what they're doing. You see what's creating it. But, people don't always some people are really good at spinning a narrative and making it look like they're more involved. And we've all seen that where somebody pops into all the pictures, but they're not they're mysteriously missing from the 6 a.m. practices all the time. Interesting.
I love that because I was just going to bring that up. We call them social media whores, and the people that go to the gym post a picture of themselves in the mirror, taking a picture or whatever, working out, changes clothes, does the same thing, and then they post a new picture all week, but they only been there once. Or even the people during the protest, during the cleanup and stuff, going and acting like they're cleaning up, they take a picture or a video of themselves stapling up a board, and then they leave right away. Like,
and coaches do it too, though. Like there are coaches that do that too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anything where there's sort of a status involved, human beings are gonna do that shit. So,
I see it all the time with the guys that are like fans of MMA. They'll pay to go to Las Vegas, go to a fight where all the fighters are going to be, get a picture of all of the fighters that they can, whether they know who they are or not. I've seen one of my friends that I went to high school with post a picture with Jorge Masvidal and didn't know his name. He says, me just standing with the UFC fighter. And I'm like, who is that? And people are asking him in the comments, and he's just not responding. And other people are the ones telling him, like, that's Jorge Masvidal, blah, blah, blah. Like, he didn't fucking know.
Mm-hmm.
And you see the same thing, like, with coaches, too, I guess, because I have seen some people that have claimed to be coaches that I know are definitely not. They don't know shit.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. I feel like it's another subject or whatever, but the guys that that they know more, or that because they have money that they are actually involved in the game and stuff like that, but they're actually fucking not. But those guys try to use pictures of themselves with fighters, like in normal clothes, saying like, yeah, I've worked with these guys, I've worked with them. This is us after practice. I'm like, dude, I got pictures with my coaches or whatever, like they're sweaty as fuck because they just got done holding pads for me, or they're
Yeah.
fuck because we just got done training clinches, or we just went through a whole practice or whatever, and they might not even have practiced, but they're hot as fuck because the room's hot as fuck. They're sweating. You guys look like they're at a business trip or at the bar. Come on, this is not. This is like a your favorite fighter. Hey TJ, you want to take a picture with me? And got it, but.
Yeah, for sure at Chipotle. They weren't even in the gym. But like you said, it's such a crazy culture where you just want people to almost you want people to assume things. So you take the pictures, you do the vaguely things, and then sometimes you don't even have to say it. It's not like, oh, I'm working with Kaitlin. But like you said, if you sneak into every single picture, people are going to start going, well, oh, maybe TJ's working with Kaitlin. I always see him a lot, whenever she's working out. And it's one of those things where you say you're not there at 6 a.m., but you can show up at 8:30 and catch those end of practice pictures. So, I mean,
Yep.
Denzel said it best in Training Day. It's not what you know, it's what you can prove.
Yeah. And that happens a lot, which is hilarious. But, another thing, though, like going back to the loyalty, maybe it's not even a loyalty thing, but I think it's important to address is like sometimes fighters will go the opposite way and sort of they start getting an attitude like the coach should be excited to train them, like it's a privilege.
Oh my God, that's when we ignored that completely.
And that's a problem too. Like, frankly, if you're on a bigger show and your coach is excited to be there, they're probably not the right person to be there. And I'm not saying you're not excited for your fighter, but what I mean is like, if it's if they don't feel like they like deep down feel like 100% like they belong on that level, then it's probably not who you need in your corner there.
Yeah, like what do you mean? They don't feel like they should be there in your corner, or like they feel like they're too on the defense, where like they have to explain themselves too much, because you know what they say about people who have to explain themselves too much. Like they probably don't too much. I don't,
but no, I mean like if somebody basically like, and of course this is more of an issue when fighters start making money. Somebody acting like getting to bring you to a big show is like some kind of gift, instead of like, no, if it's a real coach that should be in your corner, they're working, and that week is work for them, and you should think about it as such. It's not like a special vacation. Oh, I get to go to your fight show. Like, no, a serious coach should be compensated for that time,
especially when. Oh my God! When you say stuff like that, I instantly think of a guy like Jake Clipp, who's there at fucking local shows for the amateurs who are 0-1 or 0-0 or 1-0 or whatever, and then the same with the UFC fighters. Like he's
there no matter what, no matter what level it is, he's there. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean. That's a guy who's dedicated as fuck to just being a coach. And yeah, you definitely need to be compensated for that, because there's like myself and James Clark. When I was 18, I had paid a membership all the way up until I turned 18. Sure. I had my first fight. And after I had my first fight, there was a point where I'm like, okay, there was some money trouble. I wasn't able to train for like 2 or 3 months. James Clark hits me up. He's like, where the fuck you at? I'm at home. Like those aren't his words. He doesn't talk like that. But
but that's what he meant. You know what he meant.
Yeah. He's like, where have you been at? You haven't been at practice. And I don't have the money for the stuff. He's like, well, are you going to be here tomorrow? Well, I don't have the money. So I didn't ask you that. Are you going to be here tomorrow? Yes.
Yeah.
Good. I need you. And I'm there. After a certain point, I never paid a membership anymore. He just told me that I was fine.
Sure.
Especially since I was fighting like every month at a 0.2, but
yeah.
But anyway, and I felt appreciative of that, even to this day.
Totally.
He still doesn't charge me a membership. He still considers me a son, but I feel like I owe him. You know what I mean?
Totally.
There's been people that have, I guess, either found out about the deal that me and him have or whatever, and it's like, oh, Damien doesn't got to pay. Why do I got to pay? And things like that. And it's like, I never looked at it like that. I always looked at it as like, how can I pay him back? You know what I mean? Like even now, like with the like listing some of the stuff that he says and does as a sponsor and everything, it's like I'm trying to like show him my gratitude, my appreciation. There's been times where I'm trying to give him more money and he won't fucking take it. You
Absolutely.
know what I
And
mean?
that's like, that makes sense. Like that's his choice. And sometimes, and I think like at the coach's discretion there too, if it's the sort of fighter who's very giving or is going to maybe help you corner, if you can't be two places at once, like all these things, that totally makes sense. But sometimes there's like an assumption of like, oh, I'm really good, I shouldn't have to. And that's the problem. Not the coach saying, hey, I don't want to take anything from you for this, or you have some other kind of agreement. It's when there's an expectation. Just like a coach shouldn't expect you to pay them top dollar and like they show up when they feel like it. Like, no, it has to go both ways.
And that's one of the things. Like I was always like, no, I have to pay. Like that's why I stopped coming to the gym. I'm like, I don't have the money to pay. You know what I mean? And like he felt the way he felt about me, and I am so grateful of that. But not too many people are. Like how you said, like a lot of people feel like they just deserve. Like what the fuck does deserve mean anyway? Or like how do you even decide that? Or how, you know, like I felt like I earned a lot of things in life and I still didn't fucking get it. So what the fuck does deserve mean? Like you deserve to have coach's approval, or you deserve this? Like get the hell out of here. This is life. You're not going to get half of what you earn, let alone almost anything you fucking deserve. But like, there's a lot of like fighters out there that just don't have that. I guess don't have enough gratitude for the people around them. Like, I want to go back. Let's just use Jake Clip as an example since we used them before.
Sure.
But like, there's fighters that he busts his balls for that he's working with, and I believe it to be all of them from what I see. Yeah. But out of all the guys that he worked with, there's one guy that thinks like, well, he's supposed to be doing this. I'm gonna be the world champ. And they might not even have had a fucking fight yet. And as soon as like let's say he starts to say like, hey man, we need to start doing this, and he doesn't agree. Like what? You're gonna say, oh no, fuck this team, fuck these coaches. Like you're with the great teams, great coaches, but there's guys that let their own ego get in the way of being able to be coached by great coaches, you know. And I don't know if that's something that we were going at or whatever, but that's just something I wanted to touch.
That's true.
There's some fighters are just, they fuck themselves.
Absolutely. And I think that's sometimes how coaches get really burnt out. I feel like you see that a lot too. Like they maybe put a lot of effort into everybody and don't get it back. Like so I remember, you might remember this too, when Robert Brandt was holding pads for everybody. It was like when he had just finished. It was when he was just finishing his up his amateur career. He'd come in and hold pads for MMA fighters, and occasionally you'd get somebody who just would forget to pay him, and he was totally reasonable. Okay, forget and like keep doing these things and keep doing these things, and it's like you're gonna like burn people out then, and then they don't want to invest in anybody until they prove it, you know. It just, and most people aren't like that, but when you got a coach who's been doing it for years, and I think too, you know, especially when fighters aren't, it's not necessarily the money, it's the appreciation, like we were talking about. So I think that makes people burn out a bit. And I can't tell you, like working as a matchmaker, how many times I saw some fighter, their coach would be advocating for them and getting them fights and putting in all this work, and the fighter doesn't know because they just don't know how difficult it is to manage somebody and do all this stuff. And then as soon as she'd get into like Invicta, she'd go sign with a different manager who's not going to take 20%. all these things. And I think like sometimes fighters just aren't aware to how much their coach is putting in. But yeah, like you see the coaches just get burnt on somebody and just like, no, like talent is great now, but how many talented people do you think a coach like Jake has seen come through his gym? Probably a lot. But if they aren't going to work hard, aren't going to appreciate and like give back to the team or what have you, like can't sit and dump your energy into somebody like that.
Yeah, I definitely get it. You're putting in all this work trying to get somebody to the show, and once they get there, they want to sign with somebody else, thinking that it's better for them. But yeah, you don't have the same person fighting just as hard because. But let me just use the movie Jerry Maguire, a fan favorite. Everybody loves that movie, right? Where he wrote his manifesto. That's the start of the movie and everything about how agents aren't invested enough in their clients. Like they don't do enough for them, and they just see them as like, oh, I only need to get you a good deal because I need to make my Ferrari payments. But a coach is looking at it like, well, yeah, I need to pay my bills. I need to keep people in my gym. I need to get you to the next stage so I can cement your legacy, which also is going to help me keep my gym open, because if I have somebody here that's at the show or at the next level, or at least somebody that's whooping everybody's ass at the local level, I know I can have some people in my gym that are going to keep the doors open. And usually those are the guys that are fighting the hardest. You know what I mean? Like, what CEO does the dishes at their restaurant, or a CEO, whatever, what owner of a bar or restaurant is the one doing the dishes in the back? And if they are the owner of a bar or restaurant and they are doing the dishes, I'm like, I'm believing that they have a pretty successful business because they're that involved, like you can't. Okay. This leads me into, I guess, what the start of the conversation with me and TJ in the first place. Like, let's say I'm the buy this facility and I have this place, all of these nice things, but I hire other people to work for me, and I expect in Hill's MMA gym, but TJ's the one working with these fighters every single day. He's the one developing these guys every single day. I mean, it's not really right of me to expect them to be loyal to the name necessarily. Like, I would, based of everything that I had just said, I'm like, I would expect them to be loyal to the person that's putting in the work for them, and I guess that's how we kind of ended it the last time or whatever. But I'm like, but we touched on so many different things because there's so many different elements that got brought up because let's say TJ's putting in all the work, but you're the one getting all the fights and stuff like that, like let's say you leave and I'm working with both of you guys, like is there a way to work with both of you guys and not follow and not offend the other?
I have even had that like happen in the past where there's two coaches I'm working with split and then flat out been told you can work with one of us. And that it's tough, because people aren't always going to get along. And when you have a lot of people sort of involved in a situation like that, where maybe the gym director is the one getting all the fights and then the coach is the one putting in the time, those are tough questions to answer for a fighter. What is doing more for you? And a lot of the time, like, they maybe don't recognize how much work one of those things is, like, because, and I'm sure you guys have seen this, like, connections mean a lot in the fight industry, as far as relationships mean a lot in the fight industry, as far as like staying busy, getting opportunities, those kind of things. And that can even be a reason to leave a gym sometimes, is if they've damaged relationships bad enough that, well, shit, like, you can't stay because you can't have a gainful career there. That can be messy.
Yeah, I guess like a situation like there's a guy A is the manager of guy B, but guy A is hated by all of the major promotions. So
totally,
guy B stay with guy A because it's going to fuck him. I mean, your loyalty is going to end your career, but guy A has done so much for you, but he can't do anything else for you at all. I mean, it's not wrong to leave that guy, especially since, I mean, I guess just knowing them is hurting your own career. You know what I mean? Like
The associations matter. Yeah. And then that's hard. And I would say like that's where really honest conversations have to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe this is just my preference, but if you're gonna leave guy A, explain to him why. Say I'm afraid I'm gonna be denied opportunities because of our association. Because but what's hard is a lot of the time fighters don't find that stuff out. They just end up sitting and they can't figure out why.
And then it comes down to, though, if guy A knows his reputation, knows that he's limited in getting those opportunities, and he's holding on to guy B, then is he trying to do what's best for him? It's a muddy situation.
And that's where you got to remember, like, then guy A is breaching loyalty already.
Yeah.
If you know that you're holding somebody back and not, like, then guy B shouldn't worry too much about that loyalty because guy A is already not being loyal to you.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh my God! Like this is.
I feel like there's already this is part 2. We already, this is gonna be
yeah, this is long.
This is gonna be longer than the Bulls saga that came out back in April.
I mean, because there's a lot of different aspects that were brought up that we didn't really touch on. We were talking about a subject, and now
that was a great episode, though.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. But this just opened up a whole new can of worms. This is
now I gotta go back and rewatch this, take some more notes, and then we get game 3s coming up.
Okay, so I guess before we start to wrap this up, anyway, Kaitlin, what advice do you have for the local up and coming pros, up and coming amateurs that are struggling with these type of thoughts?
I would advise them to hit mute. Don't listen to what people say and just watch for patterns. In general, because like you'll see. I think that's the best way to see things without listening too much to what other people say, because other people have motives. We all do. We're all human. But to hit mute and just watch the patterns, watch what you see. Does what this person's saying line up with the stuff that happens? And I think you can find a lot of your answers that way. Or are you getting the results you want? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. I mean, yeah. I mean, thank you for sitting down and talking.
Thank you. This is super fun, you guys. As always, I love being on Trash Talk.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I feel like we're going to probably get a lot of questions or more people are going to comment on with their own thoughts or whatever. So we're probably going to have you back on again and maybe have another guests and stuff like that. I feel like this is an ever-ending discussion or never-ending discussion. Yeah, that's
for sure.
But you know how we like to do before we do wrap it up. We like to give you a platform to thank anybody. I mean, especially for this last win. Anybody supporting the gym, anybody at the gym, outside the gym, anything like that. Sponsors, teammates.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, thank you to Ryan Murray, everybody at the Striking Institute, Ishmael, and all the guys at M30 that helped me get ready. It was really amazing. Jacob Volkman coming into Tommy Matlow as my primary training partner, even though he's giant. It was really good. Good sparring with him. And then, Shannon Knapp and Invicta, all the staff, they were amazing. My sponsors, Zebra Mats and Menacing Valor. And everybody who tuned in. Oh, and I got another sponsor who I just don't mention because he doesn't like getting bothered by all the fighters after I tag him. So thank you to him, but I won't name him.
Yeah, shout out to that guy. We love him.
Yeah, thank you, person. Yeah, no, I love this conversation. I I honestly I feel like we're definitely gonna have it again. People watching this video, subscribe,
Like and subscribe. Yeah.
And don't be a hoe.
and
Good advice.
just
Always good.